everyone. My name is Matt Cremins. I am the co-founder of CivilTalk, and welcome to our first CivilTalk podcast. I'm very excited today to be joined by Steve Hayes and Randy Fisher of the FAIRtax organization. What's happening, guys? How are you?
Hi, Matt.
Great day in Florida.
All right. All right. Well, thank you both for joining us. Really excited to talk to you today about the work you guys are doing, about the FAIRtax, about our tax system and how it can be improved. So let's jump right into it. Really excited to learn, what you guys are working on. For the people at home who may be less familiar with our tax system and the idea of the FAIRtax, what is the FAIRtax at a very high level? What is the organization? And give me some background on it. When was it created? And tell me a little bit about it.
Well, thank you, Matt, for inviting us. And let me start with what is the FAIRtax. The FAIRtax is a tax replacement plan in Congress that replaces both personal and corporate income taxes, along with the payroll tax, and that's very important, and all other taxes that appear on your Form 1040, with a simple national retail sales tax on new retail goods and services. In the same way that our current system has a standard deduction that makes a flat income tax somewhat progressive, the FAIRtax creates a monthly rebate mechanism based on family size, which completely untaxes poverty level spending. So the first time since the late 1940s, you'll actually be able to feed yourself and your family first without feeding the federal government. The IRS would be replaced with a small department that would only audit the 50 states' sales tax agencies. Those state agencies would audit retail businesses, which would be paid to collect the FAIRtax, but nobody would audit individual consumers. Better yet, there would be a massive influx of jobs as foreign manufacturers would rush to build plants in the only major country without an income tax. The FAIRtax would tax the underground economy. It would tax foreign visitors who happen to be here spending, and it would tax the undocumented. No forms, no IRS, no tax on savings, no tax lobbyists, more jobs, no pass-through business taxes would mean not only would businesses flourish, but more importantly, the tax load would be spread among many, many, many more taxpayers. So everyone pays something and everyone pays less. And that's pretty much the FAIRtax.
Very interesting. Okay, so you mentioned instead of a tax on income, a tax on spending. You talked about replacing the IRS. For a lot of us, who aren't tax experts, these are terms that we hear, but maybe we're not that familiar with. So, could you guys succinctly explain how the current tax system works in our country right now for everyone at home?
Well, what I think we start with is that anytime you have a tax, whether it's an income tax, a consumption tax, or anything, it's taking away from our ability to use the money we earned or receive and do our own things, whether it's feed our family or pursue other activities. So let's start with that as a premise. So the idea is that the tax as it's currently set up is really, in effect, a disguised sales tax in this way. If you, Matt, are going to go out and buy something, let's say for $1, how much money do you have to earn to net the dollar?
Definitely more than $1.
$1.30, $1.40, depends on how successful you are in terms of the amount and where you live, because some states will add 10, 11% on to the amount of taxes you pay. So basically, under the present system, it tries to get you to say all of your income is going to be taxed at a certain percentage, but if you look at the tax code, there are lots and lots of basically confusions, I will say. They're intended to say that this is income, this isn't, you can do this, you can't. It's a completely confusing thing. And I used to do a lot of tax work. I delighted in doing tax shelters. I delighted in being able to help my clients save a lot of money legally, I will say, because there were opportunities. But it really is nothing more than moving chairs around on a sinking ship like the Titanic, because you're not producing anything if you're doing that.
Mm.
And basically, from an economic point of view, if you want to get more of something, you're rewarded. Just like with your kids, if you want them to act better, you reward that activity. If they're acting improperly, you don't reward it. Well, what do we really want to reward in this country? We want to reward work. We want to reward savings. And what are we doing with the income tax system? We are saying to you, Matt, that we want you to work hard, because the harder you work, the more you make, the more you're going to pay in taxes. We're also going to say to you, Matt, that if you do what you should do, which is save money, we're going to take some of that as well in taxes. Rather than that, the FAIRtax says, Matt, you work as hard as you want, and you get to keep what you make. You can save it, you can spend it, but when you spend it on new retail goods and services, you're going to pay the FAIRtax. It's totally up to you, not some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. It's up to you.
Yeah. So my question to you guys is clearly the IRS has some inefficiencies, and clearly the tax system isn't the best it could be right now. But why do you guys feel like this is a problem that we would need to address now? You know, we have a lot of problems in our country. Why are you guys passionate about solving this one right now? And why should Americans be?
Steve, I would take 2 hours. You go ahead.
Well, I'll try not to take 2 hours. Basically, because the system we have is failing. When you look at what the IRS commissioner finally admitted in March, you've got literally $1 trillion worth of uncollected taxes. 90+% of that, or 95% of that, is not illegal. It's actually otherwise legal taxpayers, legal income that people have chosen not to pay. And they've justified it, Matt, because you could be making the same money as the person that lives next to you, but because he's part of a favored group, you're paying 20, 30, 40% more in income tax than he is. It's very disproportionate. And it's really a sign that people are starting to get fed up. You've got states right now that have been sort of ignoring the problem. You've got 25 states that have taken action to reduce their state income tax. The reason is not because they want to, but because in order to compete with the increasing number of states that are getting rid of the income tax, they've had to, because that's how they attract business. That's how they keep citizens in their state. And so you're starting to see that. You've got a huge problem with exports that are being somewhat subsidized by foreign governments that would go away with the FAIRtax. In other words, when they export something to the United States, they give back the share of the price that is their value added tax, their consumption tax. Mm-hmm. When it gets here, we don't tax it. All right, with the FAIRtax, everything that goes across the pond, so to speak, goes without carrying the cost of our government, which is variously assumed to be 15 to 25%. Depending on it's time, if you want to reverse this problem of very, very low growth and more people becoming dependent on the government, you could change a lot of that literally overnight.
And let me mention one more thing. Steve said about job creation, one other thing that is not taxed under the fair tax is education tuition. And education and job training will be key to this rapidly developing economy. And as the economy develops and people are acquiring more job skills and there are more jobs to use it at, the value of labor is going to go up and wages are going to go up, which again is going to cycle more consumption.
Right.
So my biggest fear is how much money it would actually generate for the government, because they're going to be looking for ways to even spend more money. But we're not dealing with what's spent. We're dealing with how you fund the basic function of government and do it in a way that's fair to everybody and least dragging on the economy. And that, in my opinion, is the fair tax.
Fair tax. So the fair tax sounds amazing, right? You have the ability to grow the economy. You have the ability to simplify our tax system to where people can understand it, bring in jobs, bring in investment capital. Those are all the big advantages of it. So what are the naysayers saying? What are the criticisms of the fair tax? What opposition do you have, and what are people saying, and what's your response to those things?
Well, there's a lot of people that say a lot of different things about this. Obviously, people say, oh, you're taxing the lower income people disproportionately, because that's been the idea of sales taxes. Everybody has to buy. And if you make a low amount of income, you're still going to be buying. And so if you increase the sales tax, you're going to increase the tax on lower income. It's actually the opposite under the fair tax, because again, of the prebate, the tax credit that Randy's talking about, a family of four under the current system, if the person's working, he's making 35 or 30,000, let's make it easy for math, 30,000 a year. Under the present system, he may not pay any income tax, that family unit, but they're going to pay Social Security of 7.65%. So they're going to be able to spend effectively $18,000, 28,000, I'm rounding it off.
Right.
Whereas with a fair tax, they can spend everything and it's no tax. So they get automatically that raise from having 28,000 to spend to 30,000 to spend. Plus, the other factor that comes in is that your cost of production are going to go down, Matt. You're not going to have buried in everything you buy the cost of not only calculating the income taxes, but paying them, because that's in every product we buy all along the chain.
Right.
Is people have had to mark it up enough to make a profit, and that includes paying their taxes and paying their preparation costs. How much that is, it's been estimated, again, it depends on the product, but 10 to 20% depends on the product. Mm-hmm. But competition will bring it down. So you're going to have more money to spend, and you're going to be able to buy more, assuming that these people, like Randy say, don't continue to go crazy and put more money out and create more inflation. But even then, we still have a lot more control, because we decide what we're going to buy. And then by that, we decide what we're going to pay tax on.
And there are other hostile arguments, as we call them, against the fair tax. We have a resource on our website, fairtax.org. If you go to the section that says news, there's a weekly grassroots corner, and at least once a month or so, we'll take one of these hostile arguments. One of our directors, Jim Bennett, will take a hostile argument against the fair tax, and he'll explain why the fair tax resolves that problem.
Well, excellent. For everyone who's listening and watching at home, where can they learn more about the fair tax, and if they want to support you guys in your mission?
I would ask that they go to FAIRtax, all one word, .org, sign up on the contact form. So it's fairtax.org/contact. You'll then receive Steve's monthly chairman's report and our grassroots corner newsletter. There's a great section in there called How It Works, which is 2 one-minute explainer animations along with a slideshow that gives you a very solid feel for how it works. There's the Get Involved section where you can literally go to the toolbox and you can open the toolbox and you can find state activities. You can find social media sites. You can find downloadable forms, pamphlets, brochures, and pretty much anything you would like to use as a tool to help educate the public. Our goal right now is to have 1 million people demand it in one election cycle. And we don't care who they vote for, but we want them to vote only for people that agree it's time to repeal the 16th Amendment in the income tax and replace it with a far better sales tax. Steve, anything you want to add?
Well
about
said.
how
No,
they-
I think you said it very well.
Excellent. Well, thank you both. Steve Hayes, Rainey Fisher, the FAIRtax, thank you both for your time. Super informative, great movement, and wish you both the best of luck in your mission. So thank you both.
Thank
Let
you,
me
Matt.
thank you guys for putting CivilTalk together, because as the social media guy for FAIRtax, I can tell you there are cesspools and there are sites that I lay awake at night, having to know that I have to deal with those social media sites. But CivilTalk, in my opinion, is a breath of fresh air, and it needs to be fully supported. So thank you guys for bringing that about.
Our pleasure. All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Matt.
Matt Cremins, co-founder of CivilTalk on the CivilTalk podcast. Take care, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.